Hello and welcome. Happy Sunday. I'm in full costume today. Hello. Bonjour. Bon après-midi. Good afternoon. Today we're talking France and French Riviera and Provence. So this is the only thing I have to make outfits for right now, guys. I might be more excited to figure out what I get to wear than to talk about the wine. Hi, Mom. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Tashina. Hi, Abby. Everyone, welcome. Are you guys, is anyone wearing like their favorite bikini? I have really bad timing with this because the whole reason I picked Provence is because it was supposed to be 85 degrees this weekend. And of course we got a little bit of sunshine Thursday and Friday, and then just in time for the tasting, it went away. Hi, Renee. But you know what? We're gonna will the sunshine out, and I'm just gonna have to not pick wines based on the weather because I'm failing at that. Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's staying safe out there. If you haven't heard, or if you were planning on getting food from us tonight, both last night and tonight, we're doing our last food pickup at 7 p.m. Because of the citywide curfew at 8. So we have it on social media, but just in case you were thinking about coming by. But I hope everyone is safe and sound. And yeah, I guess that's what quarantine has been all about. So I guess as everyone else is, I promise I'm not going to wear this beret the whole time, but I just, you know, I have it and I don't think I've ever worn it. So here we are. So we're talking Provence today, which Provence for me has this sort of dual connotation because on one hand, and tell me what you guys think of when you think of Provence, but on one hand, you think of these beautiful rolling countrysides with lavender and, you know, these wonderful herbs de Provence, you know, juniper and rosemary and thyme and olives and pottery and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, there is this very ritzy socialite, you know, lifestyle of the rich and the famous on the coastline itself, on the French Riviera, the Côte d'Azur. So that's also part of Provence. So it's kind of funny because it has this like dual life, like this very agrarian, rural country feel, but also this very like ritzy, posh, you know, Saint-Tropez, Cannes Film Festival sort of thing. So how did we kind of get there? I mean, how did we go from, well, just history in general, to ending up with a place where, you know, movie stars were marrying, you know, royalty. We all know Grace Kelly became the Princess of Monaco. Rita Hayworth married a Saudi prince. And at their wedding, they had a pool filled with Provençal perfume, and everyone swam in perfume, and there were 600 bottles of champagne and 500 pounds of caviar. And it's become this kind of symbol of like decadence and luxury. And rosé, which we are going to taste, is kind of one of the iconic parts of that picture that we have of the Riviera. So has anyone been to the Riviera, or does anyone, or Provence in general, or is there, you know, kind of a memory that comes to mind or something they really think of when they think of that place? I haven't spent a lot of time in Provence. I went to Nice for a bit, and I have been to Avignon, which is sort of north. But if anyone has ever read the Peter Mayle books, A Year in Provence, those would actually be really good quarantine reads right now because they take you out of where you are and plop you down into this beautiful little provincial in Provence setting of this amazing gastronomy and all these kind of rustic farmers and like lovely French kind of countrymen who are like braising rabbit and like making their own wine. And someone saying Van Gogh and the flowers. Yeah, absolutely. All those images we have of like Van Gogh paintings and Matisse paintings. I think that was actually what I posted when we were talking about Provence on social media, was a Matisse painting of the Provence countryside. So yeah, if you haven't checked out those Peter Mayle books, yeah, I'm in full French regalia tonight because what else am I going to do in quarantine? They're a great read, and they talk a lot about wine in them and food. So after we taste today, if you're curious about getting like some great pairing ideas, you'll read those books and you'll just want to eat and make all of the French food, which sort of what everyone's doing right now anyway in quarantine. So just a little bit on the backstory of Provence, just a little bit of historical context. So going all the way back to 600 BC, the Greeks settled Provence. And they set up 3 main cities. I believe they called them Massilia, let's see if I can find my notes, Antipolis and Nicaea, which eventually became Marseille, Antibes, and Nice. So those names kind of directly go back all the way to Greek times. And the Greeks, as we can imagine, planted grapes for winemaking, and they planted olives, which are kind of 2 main things that we still associate with the region: amazing wine and great olives and olive oil. Then the Romans came in next and brought different grape varietals and kind of further advanced winemaking and brought amazing architecture. They brought the bath culture. They brought amphitheaters, temples, aqueducts, stuff like that, and kind of made it into even more of a metropolis. And they actually gave Provence its name. So up until the Romans established a foothold in Provence, all of their holdings were just in what is now modern Italy. And then they decided to branch out and kind of have further provinces beyond kind of the Roman stronghold. And Provence was the first one that they established. And the whole region was called Nostra Provincia, our province. And so that's where Provence gets its name, and it sort of became the seat of their outer provinces. And then after the Roman Empire fell, there was a lot of different people that moved into Provence. And that's one of the kind of trademark things about the region itself, is how central it is. It's sort of the opposite of what we talked about with Portugal last week. Because Portugal, if you guys can remember and picture where it is very isolated. You know, it's tucked away on the other side of Spain, and it's only bordering Spain and the ocean. So it was really isolated from the rest of Europe. But if you can think of where Provence is, map time, and I know it's going to be backward on Instagram, this is France as a whole, and Provence is this little gray area down here. So if you can kind of see, Italy is basically right next to Provence. This is the Mediterranean. We have Switzerland up here. We have Germany, obviously, and then Spain is coming down here. So Provence is right in the middle of kind of that area, and it's right on the Mediterranean, which makes it a port city, which is a big deal, especially before there were a lot of roads and railways. So it's kind of ideal territory for anyone who wants an outlet to the rest of the Mediterranean. So after the Roman Empire fell, it was at different times occupied by the Spaniards, the Arabs, Germanic tribes for a really long time, a bunch of different kind of Germanic influenced rulers, the North African pirates. There was like a lot of pirates that were kind of scavenging along the Mediterranean coast and establishing outposts. So all of this means that there's a kind of cultural mishmash that happened in Provence. So you get a lot of different styles of architecture. You get a lot of different styles of grapes. That's one of the ways that it has affected winemaking, is that you get this real mishmash of varietals. Like, I don't think there's anywhere else in France. You know, if you think about the southern Rhone Valley, it's right next to, which is this pink area right here. It's very, very close to Provence. You know, southern Rhone has a lot more similarities with Provence, you could argue, than with the northern Rhone Valley. And one of the trademarks of both of those regions is a lot of different allowed grape varietals. You see a lot of reds, you know, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Carignan, Sanso. A little bit of whites as well, but it's mainly known for these kind of big brambly reds. And all of those kind of came from different influences, bringing the different grape varietals. And same with the herbs, the spices, the produce. Provence has a really rich kind of culture because it's been influenced by so many different places. So then along the way, you know, it eventually fell under French rule, I think in like the 1400s, and saw sort of a golden age of, or actually before that, this is important. I mentioned this once before when we talked about the southern Rhone Valley, which is the papal schism that happened in 1300. Essentially, a French pope got elected, and the French king hadn't really gotten along with the Vatican. So when a French pope got elected, he was like, I am not going to have my papal seat in the Vatican. I'm actually going to have it in France. And they went to the town of Avignon and built this huge sort of stone-walled city with a big river surrounding it and, big, huge castle. And that became the new castle of the Pope, or Châteauneuf du Pape, the new castle of the Pope. And they planted a lot more grapes because Catholics need their wine. And so that also brought a lot of intellectuals, a lot of artists, a lot of kind of like liberal, more socially, I don't know, not advanced, but you know what I mean, the whole culture that came around surrounding like a big metropolis like the Vatican, that sort of landed in Provence. So then that went away, but France ruled, we had the French Revolution, and then around like the 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s, it became a spot where wealthy English would spend winters for like health purposes. They would kind of go to this as a resort town. And then the railway came in, and then before you knew it, Russian aristocracy, German aristocracy, Austrian, all the kind of rich and famous people from around Europe could now have access. And that's how the Riviera culture started to build. So that by the time you get to the 1920s, which is sort of, I think, what a lot of us picture, you had Ernest Hemingway, you had Gertrude Stein, the Fitzgeralds, Picasso, Matisse, Dali. Like, if anyone's seen Midnight in Paris, it's that whole crowd. Or if you've ever read any of Hemingway's books, A Movable Feast. And so that was a big part. This was kind of like their playground. They would hang out in Paris, or they would hang out on the Riviera. And more and more, it just became a hub for kind of like artistic, wealthy, both American expats and Europeans to kind of go and play and socialize. And there's actually an American couple, if you've ever read, there's a great Hemingway book called Tender is the Night. And it's all about the Riviera culture in the 1920s. So like if you enjoyed Midnight in Paris, or again, you just want a nice little escape to the Riviera during quarantine, it's a great book. So yeah, that's sort of the background on Provence and on the Riviera. Very, very streamlined. A lot of you probably already knew all of that. But that sort of brings us to why rosé? Why has rosé become so associated with this region? Yes, it got really popular in the US in the last 5-10 years, but up until that point in the US, you never saw people drinking rosé, and basically in the rest of Europe as well. And we've talked about when we had our pink and orange week, a couple weeks back, we talked about how rosé was kind of like the byproduct for a lot of winemakers of red wine. Because when you're making red wine, you want to concentrate it sometimes. And so as the wine starts fermenting, you open a little spigot, maybe like at the bottom of your fermenter, and kind of bleed off some of the juice, which essentially, they would just throw it away, which would be a light pink color because it had just been with the skins for a little while. And so that was kind of rosé. So in France, in Provence, they were doing something different. Provence has actually been making rosé since the Greeks. So, and I actually didn't know this, but they're finding from Greek anthropological findings relating to winemaking and viticulture that the style of most of the red wines that the Greeks would have made would have been sort of a rosé, like a pinkish color. Because they didn't really it wasn't until the Romans that people really started to understand like maceration, like letting red wine sit with the skins for a long time, and like get tannin and get color. So probably with white grapes and red grapes, the wine was sitting on the skins for like 3 to 7 days, as they were trying to get the juice off the skins. So that meant that the white wines that the Greeks made would have been a little bit orange, a little bit golden in color, and the red wines wouldn't have been super red, they would have been more of a pink color. So that was happening in Provence. Provence, I should say, is arguably the oldest winemaking region in France, which is kind of easy to imagine because they're closest to the Greeks, and the Greeks were some of the first people to make wine. So it wasn't until the Romans came along and started to understand that if you left the wine on the skins longer for reds, it would develop color, it would develop more complexity, blah, blah, blah. But in Provence, this rosé style, they say historically has actually always been done there, that even when the Romans brought new techniques and they started making reds and perfecting more white wines, rosé always still had a foothold in Provence. And I'm not exactly sure why that's the case for Provence and not any other place where the Greeks made wine, but it's sort of always been that way. And so rosé has always been a wine of choice in Provence. And in this case, they weren't making rosé in the saignée method, which we've talked about is that bleeding off method. They've been making direct press rosé. So the difference in that, if you weren't here for the pink and orange tasting, just briefly, if you're direct pressing a wine, it means you have a group of grapes and you're specifically making rosé. And so if that's the case, you're probably going to pick the red grapes a little bit earlier than if you were going to make red wine, because rosé, you want really high acidity, because it almost drinks more like a white wine. So the direct pressing is arguably kind of the superior way to make rosé if you're going after that kind of bright, crisp, refreshing, high acid style, which most the winemakers in Provence are going after. If you're doing a saignée bleeding off style, then your rosé is going to end up riper with less acidity, which isn't as pleasing for a lot of consumers. So Provence rosé has always been a thing. And mainly the main varietals that we find in there, Sanso is a big one, Grenache and Syrah. There's a great varietal called Tiburon, which also means shark in French. Oh, someone said what grapes go from rosé in Provence, so that's what we're talking about. Syrah, Sanso, Grenache. Sometimes you'll see some Carignan. A little bit now, they're planting a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, and I think there's like 5% in this rosé that we're gonna drink. But there's still sort of a taboo against like American varietals in Provence. Tiburon, if you're on Facebook, it's telling me that it's trying to reconnect. Lord, why does Facebook try to make my life so difficult? Well, I'm gonna keep talking on Instagram while Facebook is trying to reconnect. I'm gonna let it do its thing. But Tiburon, if you ever see any Côtes-du-Provence rosés or Provence rosés that have Tiburon as the varietal, it's a really unique, sort of more mineral driven, like almost has that kind of like briny, like muscadet thing when the wines are made. And it's rarer to find, and it's usually a little more expensive. So unfortunately I couldn't find one for today, but, oh good, no, I'm glad you jumped over. Facebook is having issues. I'm just gonna let it do its thing. Here, let me real quick end it and restart it. Sorry guys. If anyone is a Facebook Live pro, I would love some help. Let's see. It's gonna take 10 seconds here. Come on, come on, come on. Use camera. Yes, come on. Okay, perfect. And I think it's doing it. All right. Oh. And it's telling me, oh my God. I am not going to be able to fix Facebook, so at least it's saved now on Instagram. If you didn't know that, Instagram changed their features so that all the live videos can get saved in Instagram TV, IGTV. So if you look at our little page, there's like 3 tabs, and the middle one is IGTV. And the only things we save on there are the wine tasting. So the last couple weeks will be on there, and before that, normally it's both on Facebook, but this week will just be saved on Instagram. Okay, so back to rosé. So those are the varietals. Let's talk about what we are going to taste today. So this is the French rosé or the Provence rosé that I sold to you guys in the sets. I bet a lot of you maybe have different ones if you're out of town. I hope everyone could find a Provence rosé. Any wine shop worth their salt should have a rosé from Provence since it's the most iconic one. This particular one is from a producer called Chateau Bas, and it's actually in the Coteau d'Aix-en-Provence. So Aix-en-Provence is a town in Provence. Let me show you a zoomed up map of the Provence region. And basically just note that there's sort of subsects of the Provence appellation, as you can imagine. So this purple area over here is Côtes-du-Provence, and then this more blue area over here is Coteau Aix-en-Provence. So Aix-en-Provence is right here, and it's sort of thought of as the kind of central hub of a lot of these cute little villages. Like if you go on a tour to Provence and you want to see the lavender fields and you want to go to the Luberon, which is this yellow area, Aix-en-Provence is kind of the central town for that. Marseille is a big city down here, which we know the Greeks established. The other two towns that the Greeks established are Antibes and Nice. And Cannes is right here, which obviously we all know from the Cannes Film Festival. Monaco is right here next to Nice. Fun fact on Monaco, Monaco is the second smallest country in the world after the Vatican, and it has the highest GDP per capita because they don't have income tax. We can all imagine the casinos, the fancy cars, all that. Okay, so back to the rosé. In the Aix-en-Provence region, and really in all of Provence, it's a Mediterranean climate, as you can imagine, duh. So that means you have mild winters and hot, dry summers. Provence actually gets like around 3,000 hours of sunlight per year, which is about twice what most grapes need to ripen. So it could be, if it wasn't near the ocean or didn't have a couple other factors, you could get, very hot, overripe grapes. But two things kind of save Provence from that plight and allow you to really get balanced wines. So one is the relation to the Mediterranean Ocean. Obviously, it's right there. So you get cooling breezes from the ocean. You get kind of moisture from the ocean itself, from humidity. And it's just overall kind of a balancing, cooling influence. And then you also get, if you remember when we talked about the Northern Rhone, you get something called the Mistral wind. And the Mistral is this very, very strong wind that like whips down from the Northern Rhone Valley through the Southern Rhone and hits Provence as well. And I think I told you the one time I went to Avignon, I was shocked because it was the middle of summer and during the day it was hot, like 90 degrees. And at night, the wind kicked in and it was bitterly cold. It was like 45 degrees. So they have a really crazy diurnal shift, which means the gap in temperatures between the sunniest point in the day and the coldest point at night. And grapes really like that because that cold swing at night allows them to kind of like go dormant, lock in acidity, and kind of get a break before they have to start photosynthesizing sunlight into sugar again the next day. So that makes Provence really great, especially for growing these big red varietals, which is what they do best. And there's also the soils are like limestone and clay, which is also great for grapes. So let's taste this rosé, shall we? Let me hold up my sheet here. And if anyone's tasting anything different, let me know. So this color, in a perfect world, I would like it if this rosé was just a tiny bit lighter in color, only because often we associate Provence rosés with very, very, very pale styles. This one is delicious and I love it. But just know that this is sort of on the darker end for a Provence rosé in general. Sometimes you'll see Provence rosés and they'll be like almost white. And so they kind of drink more like a white wine. So anyway, we look at this color. What do you guys think about the color? I would say it's like a salmon pink, like a pale salmon pink. It has like a little bit of that rosiness, but just a little bit more orange. Yeah, Abby says same region, but a little bit lighter. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So let's look at the legs here. Tell me what you guys think about the legs. I actually didn't look what the alcohol is on this. Matches my lipstick. Thank you. I planned that. So I have the legs are slow to start. Let's see. They should speed up a little bit once they're actually formed. Yeah, they're slow to form, but then once they are formed, they're moving fairly quickly. I would guess this is like 13% alcohol just from looking at it. I have not looked. 12%. Great. Traditionally, you're picking for rosé in Provence very early compared to the red wine because you're really trying to get that acidity. So it makes sense. The sugars aren't going to be as ripe, and so the alcohol is going to be lower. And someone's drinking a white from Côtes-du-Provence. Great. Yeah, it's actually rare. Whites are the hardest color of wine to find from Provence. That shows how big rosé is in the region, that in lieu of drinking white, most people drink rosé there. They still drink red, but instead of white, they'll drink rosé. So it's fun to find a white from Provence. There's a little region called Cassis or Cassis, I'm not sure if they pronounce the S, that is the only little AOC within Provence that's known for white wines. And I honestly haven't drank a lot of them, but if you like the wines today, they'd be worth checking out. So let's smell this and tell me what you guys smell. It already smells refreshing on the nose. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It smells like summer. So for me, I'm getting some wild strawberry, maybe some rose petal, a little bit floral, kind of delicate red fruit, maybe some raspberry. If you had to guess or if you had to qualify the fruit that you're smelling, would you think that it's more ripe fruit or, just ripe strawberries? Someone said cantaloupe. I like that tasting note. Yeah. It's almost got, I wouldn't say it's peachy, but yeah, that kind of melony, fresh melon. I think cantaloupe's a great tasting note. Yeah, for me, I think this fruit is more, it's on the just ripe end of things. We've even though it's from a hot region, which is a clue that they are, since we know it's a hot region, and if we smell fruit that smells so fresh and kind of young, we can assume pretty safely that they're picking pretty early to get that fruit before it gets very ripe. Yeah, Abby says she can almost smell kind of greenness on the strawberries. I totally agree. That you sort of get oh, it's just ripe and it's just fresh enough. It's definitely not when we taste Sicily, that kind of cooked jammy kind of thing. And we'll see, it'll be interesting to compare the red wine kind of in terms of the state of the fruit. So let's taste it and see what you guys think about the taste. Are you tasting the same sort of fruit that you were smelling? That kind of strawberry, raspberry, cantaloupe. I think that we're getting the same sort of flavors. I would even add that there's a sort of floral aspect to it, and maybe a little bit of citrus, a grapefruit note. What do you guys think about the acidity? As a reminder, if you are trying to figure out the clue to detect acidity, after you drink it, kind of let it settle in your mouth and kind of see if you can observe how much your mouth is salivating. That's generally a clue to how high the acid is. Someone's saying it's very floral, a little bit nutty. Yeah, I could see maybe a little bit of that kind of green almond thing. Someone's saying lighter in color than yours. Yep, very perfumed on the nose, very dry, very acidic. Yep. Yeah, that's one of the trademarks of Provence Rosé, because they kind of created that very dry style. And now a lot of other rosé winemakers have emulated that style. They've emulated the style in general because a lot of people weren't making rosé. But you're specifically going for that early pick. Sometimes winemakers will even pick at night to preserve acidity while the grapes are kind of dormant and the acidity is at its highest. And they'll do a real quick press before the grapes can ever heat up. Grapefruit notes, very dry, lots of acidity. What about the tannin? Trick question. You guys should remember, because rosé doesn't have much tannin, because tannin comes from skin contact, and so rosé doesn't have a lot of time on the skins. Just a touch, just that little bit that gives it just enough color. But especially if you have an even paler rosé, you're going to get even less of that sensation. So high in acidity, really fresh fruit, very young, very bright. This rosé is not something that's meant to age. You want to drink it as fresh as possible. The French will say bien frais, bien, good, and then F-R-A-I, frais, very fresh, good and fresh. And that's kind of what they're looking for in a rosé. So what would you guys pair with this? Any pairing ideas or any thoughts on it? I encourage you all to go read those Year in Provence books. They're such a quick little easy read. and you'll feel like you're there, and you'll be like, oh, I want to cook all those things. But if you can think, Provence is sort of an easy region to think pairings, because if you've heard the adage, what grows together goes together, a lot of us can picture what grows in Provence. There's lots of olives, there's citrus, there's all those herbs of Provence, lavender, juniper, thyme, rosemary. People are saying bowls of berries, stinky cheese, totally. Lavender shortbread, absolutely. Shrimp salad, butter and radish, yeah, totally. Like fresh produce, really like simple rustic food is what I think of with French rosé. Fish tacos would be amazing, absolutely. As we've experienced in the past, when wines have high acidity, often it is a great pairing for anything with some spice, either like hot and spicy or just kind of, like spices in general. My dad says donuts. I mean, donuts and rosé sound like a great way to spend a Sunday to me, especially in quarantine. A hammock in the sun, absolutely, right? We can kind of all pretend it's summer while we're drinking this wine, especially as we'll see with the red. Anything that you use those herbs de Provence in, you can put them on meat, you can put them on vegetables, you can even put them on like salmon or fish. You get those great kind of spicy herbal flavors, and those make a great pairing with Provence wines. Mussels, totally. Prosciutto and melon, yeah, that would be perfect. That'd be amazing. My 3-year-old loves this wine. You must have a very European household. I love it. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. And you could even, throw some stuff on the grill, make some burgers, be a great pairing. Summer salads, grilled vegetables, anything that's just kind of simple, grill some vegetables and put some lemon and some herbs de Provence, and it's a perfect pairing with this. So I'm glad you guys are liking it. I encourage you to all go watch like An Affair to Remember or To Catch a Thief, or any of those, great Riviera movies, and you can finish the rosé tonight and feel like you're there. Wife said cheese, but she thinks everything tastes like cheese. I mean, honestly, cheese, there's a reason cheese and wine have such a, ideal pairing, which is they go really well together. And I would look for probably like French cheeses that are made in, I should have researched this beforehand. I'm not good enough with cheeses to know like what styles in Provence are really classic to the region, but that might be a fun little research project. I bet any cheese made in Provence would be great with either of these wines. And this is another, I was gonna say something and then I just totally lost it. Cheese pairing, Provence. I realized this when I got to Nice, which I felt really dumb for not having realized beforehand, but if you've ever had a Niçoise salad, that is a salad from Nice. So a Niçoise salad would be a great pairing for this rosé. Tuna, olives, egg, green beans, tomatoes, all of that stuff that's coming into season. Niçoise salad would be great with this. Yeah, someone was just saying rosé with tomatoes, blue cheese, totally. I'm glad you guys are so inspired. So let's, someone's saying any Oregon rosés that are comparable. Yes, I mean, off the top of my head, it's hard to find rosés from the Willamette Valley made from the same varietals as Provence, because Provence is so much hotter. So the varietals that we mentioned, Mourvedre, Grenache, Carignan, Syrah, don't grow real well in the Willamette Valley. In like the Columbia Gorge or in Washington or in Southern Oregon, those varietals grow better, but I haven't seen a ton of rosés come out from those regions that are like this in style. There are Willamette Valley rosés that I've had just made from Pinot Noir that are definitely in this like light, crisp, fresh style. Jay Christopher makes a really good one. He just came to mind. I need to plan this out beforehand because I'm going to forget so many good ones. Hold that thought. I'll tag the post, or if anyone has any favorite ones, throw them out there. The one that we had, the native rosé, he kind of goes for that same style, like early pick, high acidity. I'll think about some more. Oh, and someone's saying, are Washington comparables? Yeah, you know, I haven't had a lot of Washington rosé that's in this very high acid style. There could be producers that are starting to make it more, but it's hard in Washington because Washington is very hot and doesn't have the ocean influence and the Mistral. And so Provence is more capable of simultaneously growing really ripe grapes and also maintaining high acidity. So maybe like more in Southern Oregon, like where not Southern Oregon, but where the Van Duzer corridor comes in, where you get hot weather and also a cooling breeze from the ocean, that would be kind of an ideal place for it. Analema in the Columbia Gorge makes a really great, really pale rosé. It's from Pinot Noir, but I think they might be making one with like Grenache and Syrah now. I love that one. We went with oysters for our snack pairing. That is a great choice. No regrets. Yeah, I mean, Provence is right on the ocean, so any kind of seafood would be amazing. A niche in the Gorge, I'm not familiar with them, but I will look them up, has a great one. Best rosé in Washington is Bernard Griffith. Same there, I'll have to look that up. Cool. I'm glad you guys are liking it. Oh yeah, Analema's rosé, yep. So let's move on to Bandol, shall we? So Bandol is arguably the most well-known sub-region within Provence. So Bandol, real quick, I'll show you on here, is this teeny little dark blue region that's right in the middle and right on the ocean. So kind of smack dab in the middle of Provence and right next to the Mediterranean. Whereas the Coteau in Provence appellation, where the rosé is from, it's like more up in the hills. Bandol is like right in these kind of forests of pines, right on the ocean. So you get hot weather, you get a lot of like prime clay and limestone soils, and then you get a lot of those cooling breezes from the ocean. So, so I'm saying, should I open my Bandol rosé? I mean, depends how ambitious of a night you're gonna have. Bandol does make amazing rosé. And if I could have gotten a Bandol Rouge and a Bandol rosé, that would have been great. Unfortunately, Bandol is a pricier region from the rest of Provence. So the rosés from Bandol run a little more than from the rest of Provence. But if you liked the rosé that we tasted, and if you like the red that we're about to have, Bandol rosé is like my favorite in Provence. It's delicious, really, really good. So Bandol is more known for red, and then kind of rosé next, and they do make a little bit of white, but again, it's not as well known for white. So the big red grape in Bandol is Mourvedre. Whereas other areas in Provence kind of have this mishmash of grapes, Bandol really focuses on Mourvedre, and then secondarily uses Sanso and then a little bit of Syrah and Grenache, but most Bandol Rouges that you will find is primarily Mourvedre. Ours, so the one we are going to taste is Chateau Moulin de la Roque. Les Audrey is the vineyard, or the kind of block of their vineyards. The appellation is Bandol, as you can imagine. I'm sure some of you are drinking other Bandol Rouges. I hope you could find one of those as well. If you can't, I encourage you to go look one up. But Mourvedre, as a grape varietal, is one of the latest ripening red varietals that there is. So it really requires a region that is hot and gets a lot of extended sunshine in order to ripen Mourvedre. And so Provence is perfect for that, with the more than twice the hours needed for sunlight. And then of course you can kind of maintain acidity with the breezes and with the ocean. So you generally get these kind of big, spicy, wild reds. So let's taste it and see what we think. So let me hold this up here again for color. What do you guys think about the color? Let's see how well you can see it. I mean, for me, this is very dark. And the color, tell me what you guys think. But I get ruby. It's a very dark red. You kind of get these like almost blackberry colored notes to it. It's like a deep, deep, slightly purpley red, I would say. A little bit of garnet in there. I'm gonna start swirling now so I can see how these legs form. So my legs are going pretty slow. I don't know if you guys can see. Probably not. I wish they would show up. but they're moving very slowly. Yeah, people are saying classic garnet, ruby, garnet, garnet. You guys are on point. Someone's drinking one that's 60 Mourvedre, 40 Grenache, totally. So it might be a little, often Mourvedre is very structured. So sometimes if people have like very tannic Mourvedre, they'll add a little Grenache in there to kind of soften it up and give it a little more fruit. That's because Grenache doesn't have a lot of tannin on its own. Very, very dark, yeah, pretty opaque. Yeah, you can't really, some reds, like if you remember the Hungarian red, you can see right through it. That's not really the case with this. So let's see, for me, the legs are thick and fairly slow moving. That one's kind of fast. But overall, they're pretty thick tiers or legs. What would you guys guess the alcohol is on this? Before I look, I would say it's probably like 13.5. Let's see if it says. Oh, damn, 14.5. So hot region. And that tells you right there the difference in pick time between these two varietals. So both of the rosé and the red are both made from red varietals. This rosé could have easily been made from Mourvedre. A lot of French rosé is made from Mourvedre. So if you think about like how long it would take in terms of difference to have a sugar level that would ferment to a 12% wine as opposed to a 14.5% wine, that's a big difference in sugar ripeness. And I don't know the exact harvest dates, but I would guess for that rosé, they probably picked in August, like mid-August. And with the Bandol, they could have picked end of September, even early October, because that's a pretty big alcohol difference. So let's smell it. Tell me what you guys are smelling. And tell me what you think about, we talked about like the condition of the fruit, how ripe or how fresh. So I'm getting a lot of plum, kind of cassis, that like black cherry, blackberry, boysenberry. Do you guys get that? Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you guys get that kind of spicy, peppery smell? And someone beat me to it, peppery. Tomato sauce, weirdly enough. Yeah, tomato, you kind of have this like spicy smell. And with tomatoes, I can see that like kind of savory sweet smell. Blackberry, plum, deep red fruit. Yeah, spicy for sure. Dried floral. Yeah, there's a term that they use in Provence called garrigue, which is Garrigue. So garrigue refers to those herbs of Provence. Juniper, thyme, rosemary, lavender. So if you say a wine has garrigue smell or taste, you're talking about those wild herbs. And I feel like you kind of get that, like cracked black pepper, lavender, fresh thyme, a little bit of leather, cloves. Yeah, absolutely, like a little bit spicy and herbal. Let's taste it and see if that kind of affirms on the palate. Tell me what you guys think about the tannin and the acidity. I think it's pretty dry, especially not having any food with it. I feel like I need to lick my teeth off. It dries your mouth out, which means it's high in tannin, which makes sense because with this color being so dark, it means it probably sat on the skins a long time, and we know the alcohol is high, so it ripened a lot. And not only do the sugar levels ripen, the tannins get more mature. Is someone saying peanut butter mouth? Yes, Michael, I agree. Yeah, you're like, mouth is stuck. That's exactly what a really tannic wine will do. But the acidity is also high, as Sarah noticed. Yeah, that's a great, I was thinking the same thing. I would say it's like medium to high acidity, because we know that it, stayed on the vine a little bit longer, or a lot longer than the rosé. But I do think even when it stays on the vine a long time, you do get a nice balanced acidity because of that ocean breeze, ocean influence. And we've also talked about how often tannin and acidity can accentuate each other. So because it hits our mouth in such an intense way, and you lick your teeth, which kind of produces saliva too, that sometimes if it's really high tannin or really high acid, your brain will kind of think that the other one is high as well. So yeah, I would say it's high tannin and like medium plus acidity. Super tannic, feels heavy, high tannins, like at least 12 or 13. Yeah, ours is 14.5. It's a high alcohol wine. Not quite as acidic as the rosé. Yep. What do you guys think about the flavor? I feel like you definitely get those same kind of like dark fruits. And as opposed to the rosé being like just ripe strawberry, for me, this feels almost like it has a little bit of dried fruit to it. Like I don't think the fruit is tired or overly ripe. I don't feel like it's syrupy, but it's almost like dried plums or dried figs. Would you guys agree? You know, fairly ripe blackberries, stuff like that. Taste it again. Yeah. A little bit of that like peppery, spicy thing as well. I think you really smell it on the nose, but you get that little like prickle on your tongue too. What would you guys pair with this wine? I mean, you can probably guess, but I definitely think some meat would be helpful with those tannins. You've heard me say it before, but fat is a great pairing with tannin because the tannin kind of cuts through the fat, makes the tannins not intense, makes the fat less rich. They're a really nice pairing for each other. So any like grilled meat would be amazing, especially if you rub it in some of those great herbs. Grill it like really simply. Provençal food is very simple. You know, it's like fresh ingredients, just grilled or roasted with fresh herbs. Everything comes from the region. Figs and cheese, totally. That sounds awesome. Yeah, this would be another great one with cheese. You know, it has enough ripeness that it will kind of provide that jamminess that if you eat it with a cheese, you could kind of pair it like you would like a jam with a cheese. Brie was good with it. That's a great option. I could see the rich like fattiness of the brie being a great pairing with those tannins. Lasagna, yeah, totally. The meat, the acidity of the tomato, the richness of the cheese. We're having Provençal mussels. I bet that's great. I mean, I could see, tell me if you think that, are the tannins like overwhelming for the mussels, or is there enough kind of seasoning and maybe acidity in there that it's hopefully not overwhelming it? Chocolate covered hazelnuts, that sounds really good. Humboldt fog cheese, yep. That's such a strong cheese and this is such a strong wine. I bet that would be great. Beef tacos, yeah, totally. Get that beef in there with the, balance out the tannins, good spices. Chocolate and cherry sauce. This sounds so decadent. I hope you guys are actually cooking all of this. Bacon wrapped dates, oh, that would be awesome. Again, fattiness in the bacon, kind of sweetness in the dates. Yeah, grilled lamb is something I always think of with Bandol, like grilled lamb with rosemary. I think that would be great. Grilled pizza with chorizo, totally. I think Bandol is like a really classy red that is great. You know, if you're throwing a dinner party and you want a red that will probably please most guests, because it's full-bodied, it's dry, it's ripe enough that I think someone who's maybe used to drinking more New World, like Washington, California, Australian wines, they could still associate with it. It's not like you're serving them like a really light-bodied Burgundy, but it's complex and it's spicy and there's cool history behind it. So Bandol is a great dinner party wine. Blue cheese, yeah, I bet a couple of you said blue cheese. It's probably a really good pairing. Yeah, I'm trying to think what other, I should have looked up some of those classic Provençal dishes. I know Provence, especially in the wintertime, makes really hearty stews and like meat pies, like savory sorts of pies and baked dishes. And their food, I mean, the food they eat in Provence is really decadent. I wish I had read those Year in Provence books more recently because they go into all this detail. They're constantly like braising rabbit and pheasant and lamb and, just having these big luxurious lunches in the middle of the day as they do in France. Lunch is their big meal of the day. And they'll just eat for hours and then take a nap and then go back to work. And so it's definitely, they're a big gastronomical region, and so it makes sense that they would have, a wine that can stand up to all that rich food. So I encourage you to, do some Provençal recipe research and cook some stuff and tag us in it. So it's about 10 till 4 right now. Do you guys have any questions on Provence in general? I had a couple things I was going to update you guys about in regards to the rest of the summer and next week as well. But if you guys have any more questions on Provence, just let me know. I hope this was I know Provence is a sort of a small region, but I just thought, especially with it coming into summer, and Provence rosé is something we all know and love, and it has such a rich history. So basically, I'll tell you what next week's region is, but first, I am starting to plan out these tastings a full month in advance. So I'm outlining the tastings for the whole month in June, and then I'll get the whole month in July. June is almost finalized. I'll have everything announced tomorrow. But a lot of you have asked me, because right now you have to sign up every single week. And I'm trying to make that easier. So if you would prefer to sign up for the whole month, we're starting sort of a monthly wine subscription. And it's going to be $130 a month, which is basically a $10 savings than if you bought them all separately. And you're also going to get a $25 credit towards the restaurant each month. It doesn't roll over, but if you want to use it on any food and wine that month, and pick up a bottle of wine or a snack when you pick up one of your tastings, that will be doable. And we just ask that you cancel by the 15th of the upcoming month, just because now there's enough of you doing these tastings that I'm kind of struggling to find enough wines that they have in enough quantity. So I'm trying to plan them out more in advance. So being able to tell a distributor 3 weeks ahead of time, hey, I need a lot of this wine, is really helpful. So that's why we ask for like the 15-day cancellation. And basically, I think I figured out a way to do this. We do all our sales through Square. And so they have something called a recurring invoice. It's the only way to bill things recurringly. And I built a little form into our website on our virtual wine tasting page. So if you're interested in signing up for the monthly membership, just click on it and put in your name and email, and I will send you a personalized invoice through Square where you can put in your credit card, it'll save it, and it'll bill you monthly. And then if you want to cancel, you just let us know. So yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a while, and we're finally making it happen. And that'll include the 4 tastings in the month. I think August has 5 weeks, so I'm probably going to take one of those off. So there'll be 4 tastings, but I'll keep you posted on that. Unfortunately, if I can find a way to get all the wines in to pick up at once, that'd be great. Not quite yet, unfortunately, just because I'm still trying to figure out, there'll still be people ordering weekly. Maybe. I'll keep you posted on that. I know that'd be great to be able to just come pick up once. So I will make that a priority to see if I can get that as soon as possible. But yeah, so for next week, we're doing a sort of summary one next week again, and then we'll go back to more red wines the week after. But next week is going to be on Petnat, Pétillant Naturel. A couple of you guys have asked for information about sparkling wine. So we're actually going to taste 2 Petnats, and the reason being that Petnat has such a varied scope of the wines in it and how you can make them and whether or not you disgorge and how long it sits on the lees and stuff like that. Yeah, so someone said, can we find out what the themes will be the month in advance? Exactly. So I'm going to have all of June posted tomorrow. I can tell you the first 2 weeks right now. Next week's going to be Petnat. There's going to be a red and a white made in different methods. And then the week after is going to be 3 shades of Chile. So there's actually going to be 3 wines the next week, all from red grape varietals. They're going to be different in color, kind of like on the scale from rosé to red, but you're going to get 3 wines, so that's pretty cool. Someone's saying, can you find out what the themes will be for them? Yep, I just answered that. Would also love a way to reorder wines. Yeah, so if you ever like the wines that you tasted, just shoot me an email. If you either Kelsey at ArdenPDX or info at ArdenPDX, or hit me up on Instagram, I can always reorder the wines for you. It'll take me just a couple days to get them ordered and in stock, but yes, absolutely. And often we have some extras after the tasting, so just let me know and I can always get those for you. Any sneak peeks on summer menu items? Yeah, actually. So starting on Tuesday, we're closed tomorrow, and starting on Tuesday, we're rolling out sort of a whole new summer menu because it's time. And so I'm not going to reveal all the dishes yet, But I'll post it on social media, and check out our menu from Tuesday onwards. There's gonna be a lot of new dishes. And also, sort of giving up a secret, but we're gonna be starting to roll out some prepared pantry items, because we know a lot of you are gonna be grilling at home and cooking outside as the weather gets nicer. So we're gonna be rolling out some like sauces and condiments and salad dressings and relishes and aiolis and stuff that you can get from us and then stick in your fridge, maybe even some sausages, some fresh pasta, and that you can kind of use to enhance your home cooking. And that'll all be on our website as well. Perfect. We enjoy tasting with you in Seattle. It would be great if you could find a partnership with a wine retailer up there. I'll shoot an email to Esquin. I'll shoot him a note and be like, hey, this is our schedule for the next couple weeks. These are the wines we're going to be doing. And, I'm sure they would be happy to get wines that people are going to buy. Great. Okay, so I think that's all the news that I have to tell you. Yeah, we're excited to kind of roll out all this new summer stuff. And look for that come Tuesday. And if you want to sign up, basically there's now 2 signups on the website. One is the weekly, if you're just going to buy by the week, which is amazing, just do that. It says like get this week's set, or you can sign up for the monthly thing. And I will work on trying to be able to pick them all at once. That's Quinn. Cool. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, look out for news on social media. See you next week for PetNat. So next week will be PetNat. The next week will be Chilean red wines and red grapes. The next week is going to be something in Italy that I'm going to specify by tomorrow, waiting to hear from a couple people. And then I think we're going to have a special tasting, one that we've kind of never done before, on the last week of June, which I'm also just waiting to confirm something, and we will announce tomorrow. So thank you guys so much. You guys are the best. This is such a high point of the week, and I hope you can enjoy a little bit of this nice weather. The sun's poking its head out, and stay safe this week, everyone. And we will see you on Sunday. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And sorry Facebook was lame again. Just know that they're all saved on Instagram. Okay, bye guys. Have a great day.